And Jake Hansler here, filling in for McGraw Millhaven, who just walked out the door with that flu thing that's going around. But thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here and feel better, McGraw.
Absolutely. The threats around the country, the uptick in anti-Semitism is real these days.
Well, yeah, and you heard Kelly just mention a recent incident, and these have been kind of building in what has been something of a wave of harassment targeting Jewish community centers. There were 11 bomb threats just yesterday alone. And since the start of the year, more than 54 Jewish community centers have been targeted in 27 states. And while no bombs have been found, the sheer number it has drawn the suspicions of the FBI, which is investigating these threatening calls as possible civil rights violations, potential hate crimes.
What is leading to this, Aaron?
Well, it's not clear. The president was asked about this a couple of different times in successive news conferences, and he sort of seemingly ignored the easy opportunity to denounce anti-Semitism and the increasing threats against Jewish people in the country. The first time it came up in his news conference with Benjamin Netanyahu, he brought up his electoral college victory. And
Typical.
The second time, when an Orthodox Jewish reporter asked the question, he kind of sat him down and said, he was the least anti-Semitic person he's ever seen in his life. But the White House finally issued a statement about this last night, saying that hate-motivated violence has no place in the country, and that the president has made clear these actions are unacceptable. Of course, he's not made that abundantly clear, despite his recent opportunities. It was daughter Ivanka who tweeted last night on the incidents, saying America is a nation built on the principle of religious tolerance.
And Ivanka is married to an Orthodox Jew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to Jared Kushner, and she converted for the marriage. They're raising their kids Jewish, and that's a fact Trump points out, but he does not denounce the acts themselves, and so it may still come up. Nonetheless, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are investigating.
Aaron, maybe you've seen this as well, and I've seen it as an attorney here, and I'm representing some folks of another national origin, another religion in a discrimination case. And I see almost a brazenness in the willingness to say and do things that 2 or 3 years ago people would never have done. And while I don't blame the current president, I do blame, I think, the rhetoric surrounding the current or the just recently passed election. Are we seeing more of that across the spectrum of races and religions?
Well, I think, local police, I'll just take the New York City Police Department. They say they have noticed an uptick in anti-Semitic incidents, whether it's the bomb threats against the Jewish community centers, whether it's, anti-Semitic graffiti, however, whatever the flavor. They've noticed an uptick since the election. Now, they've also talked about heated rhetoric. They're not going to link the two. They're not going to say that President Trump is causing this because, that's a step too far. But they clearly have taken note of the heated rhetoric and that some of his politics has led to, and they've taken note of these increased incidents. And now with the FBI involved, these are potential hate crimes if they can find a pattern and someone behind it and get at that person or people's motivations.
You mentioned the chance to kind of say something definitive on this, and I think we've seen that from this administration in the past, to come right out and say this is not going to be an administration of hate, of discrimination. And is that in part because the groups that support the president have a tendency some groups that support the president have a tendency to use this rhetoric, and he's afraid to, face them down?
Well, in some cases he has, in some cases he hasn't. David Duke continues to be a supporter, and I think the president has tried to distance himself from the former KKK leader, but there's certainly questions. I think it's tough, though, to tie the president to groups that support him that he may not necessarily have. It may not be a reciprocal relationship, but I think it's more the heated rhetoric during the campaign, and that's continued into the administration rather than perhaps specific relationships. At least that's the way police have been looking at it.
Well, and again, I don't mean to imply that it was tied directly to the president. There's no evidence of that, and I don't believe this president necessarily has anti-Semitic feelings. But there is a point in time which, as the leader of the country, you are the one who says enough's enough. We're going to do everything we can to put a stop to this, and that's what I'd like to see out of here.
And I think that that's part of the reason why he was asked the question, 2 news conferences in a row. And finally, it was left to the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, to issue a statement saying that the hatred and hate-motivated violence have no place in a country founded on the promise of individual freedom. And the statement said that the president has made that abundantly clear, that these actions are unacceptable. I mean, and while he may have not made that abundantly clear, despite his recent opportunities, you do have the tweet from Ivanka and the White House press secretary now on record saying these are unacceptable.
Aaron Katersky, ABC News correspondent from the White House, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
It is 7:44 here at KTRS, the Big 550. Jake Kanzler filling in from McGraw Millhaven, who is gone home sick. We'll be back.